can't really unbox what's not boxed. Smell test? Smells old. I think that's the table I'm gonna use. Perfect. What's up, guys? My name is Mark, and this is the most expensive vintage lens I've ever purchased. But it is my favorite lens, so that's gotta count for something, right? The super multi-coated Takumar 85mm 1.8 is a vintage full-frame SLR lens that was manufactured between 1972 and 1976. It's a full manual control lens with an M42 mount and has an aperture range between f1.8 and f16. And unlike the 50mm Takumar f1.4, the 85mm does not contain radioactive properties. But it's still a hot lens. And let me show you why. Like all super multi-coated Takumars, the build quality of this lens is fantastic. The all metal and glass construction really sets the standard in terms of ergonomics. This thing is built to outlast me. It came with this metal lens hood and cap, which completes the package nicely. The focusing ring is buttery smooth and really makes manual focusing a pleasure. Now, the only thing I did notice is because of the long focus throw on this lens, it does make capturing focus on a moving subject a little difficult. But nothing a bit of practice and experience can't help overcome. Sitting next to the 50 and 135, the 85mm is a thicker, heavier lens, but still handles great mounted to my Sony a7S II mirrorless. But let's be honest, we're not buying a lens based on how it feels. Image quality has something to do with it. Now, this vintage lens does all the things you want a lens to do really well, providing excellent sharpness, contrast, and colors across the board. Now, chances are, if you're shooting with an 85mm lens, you're probably shooting wide open to take advantage of that shallow depth of field and background bokeh. The minimum focusing distance on this lens is 85 centimeters. And the closer to the subject, the shallower the depth of field and more attractive the bokeh. And I'm going to take full advantage of that in these test images. Wide open at f1.8, the lens gives sharp, surprisingly contrasty and colorful images. The bokeh is creamy and very pleasing as well. Just make sure the shutter speed is equal to or greater than the focal length of the lens to ensure the sharpest image results. Stopping down, the sharpness and contrast improve, peaking around f5.6. And you'll notice the bokeh normalizes as less light comes through the lens. Now, the flaring on this lens is pretty tightly controlled. The super multi-coating in the name refers to the anti-reflection optical coating applied to the surface of the lens and other optical elements to reduce reflection and flaring. The TAC 85 doesn't have any internal image stabilization, which can make shooting handheld stable video a bit tricky. However, a lot of modern cameras have sensor image stabilization. It's just a matter of setting it to the focal length and boom, you've got a stabilized lens. I mentioned earlier that this is the most expensive vintage lens I've purchased to date. Depending where you're looking, you can find them for anywhere between $250 and $500. And part of that has to do with the fact that this is a comparatively rare lens. combined with the fact that the 85mm focal length is highly desirable and the image quality is fantastic. The final price is really just a reflection of all that. Now, is the price worth it for a vintage lens? Really depends on where you put your value. There is some comfort knowing that if you do buy this lens and take good care of it, the chances are when you're finished with it or want to sell it, you'll get what you paid for, or in some cases, a little bit more. Now, I do have a modern Canon 85mm 1.8. I thought it might be kind of fun to do a little side-by-side comparison. Now, the two lenses are pretty close in price, size, and weight. The Canon might have the slight advantage here, having the luxuries of autofocus and modern optics. Now, I do want to give a special shout out to the Henry store up in Barrie for being super cool and loaning me this modern Canon 85 to compare against my vintage TAC 85. The Canon is a great lens and actually costs roughly the same as the Takumar, so if vintage isn't your thing, this one might be something to think about. So guys, that's a look at the super multi-coated Takumar 85mm f1.8 lens. Built like a tank, outstanding image quality and performance, and being somewhat hard to find combined to make this my absolute favorite lens to shoot photo and video right now. I'm feeling a little hard-pressed to find anything I don't like about this lens, but if I had to pick something, it would have to be the price. Now, one of the things I love about vintage lenses so much is that they are cheaper than their modern counterparts. And that just makes it more accessible for photographers and videographers. And accessibility is always a good thing. Now, as much as I love using these vintage prime lenses on my modern cameras, I'm actually kind of looking forward to using them on this 35mm film camera. It has been a long time since I've shot 35mm film, and I'm ready for a new format. I'm ready for a new challenge, and I'm curious to see how these lenses work with film. But as for this video, guys, that's it. I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.